So what'd you guys think?
I think Palmer was feeling altogether virtuous on it since he cleaned the entire trail.
I cleaned the whole trail on the felt. And
First time?
being that it was the heaviest bike in the whole fleet, I wasn't really expecting much out of it. Obviously, it has higher end spec. This is the alloy version, and it's got a really good spec on it, but it is heavy. But despite that, like, it felt light. It actually rode lighter than I thought that, or well, it rode lighter than the numbers represented. To me,
I felt the same way.
Did you?
I think it's the big wheels, dude.
Do you think? Because this is the first felt in 3 years that I've walked away unimpressed by. I rode the Compulsion LT and the Edict last year and liked both of them a lot. I thought the bike felt heavy and uninspired out on there. And it's 31 and about a quarter pounds. And you're right, it's got great spec. It's like almost all Shimano XT. And the places that it's not XT, they made like smart savings, right? They put like Diori brakes, which may not be cool, but they always work well. Yeah. It's got a kind shock post on it.
It's got XT hubs on it, which nobody ever specs Shimano hubs, and they're great.
Yeah.
And XT hubs are like the workhorse of hubs. I mean, they'll last forever. They're not very expensive. They're really heavy, but they'll last forever. And you can rebuild them and rebuild them and rebuild them, and they're great. And it's actually nice to see somebody spec a decent hub on a bike.
Yeah, no, they did a lot of, there's a lot of thoughtful details all over the bike, right?
There are.
But I did not have fun on the bike at all. And I don't know if some of it, the rear end is pretty long. It's 17.7 inches. I had a really hard time manualing the bike over, like we'd have those little sort of divots and things. And the bike just didn't feel playful at all to me. And it was a weird combination because it had the long rear end, and yet I still felt, again, kind of pushed forward on the bike. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I wrote it down on our test sheets. And then I went back and looked finally at the geometry sheet. And it's got like a 74.5 C-tube angle, which is pretty steep. And I ride a bike in this genre already. I ride a Santa Cruz Tallboy LT a lot of the time, at least this summer. And I'm used to the seat angle being a couple degrees back. So maybe that's just, I have a bias because I'm used to riding a bike, a 29er long travel bike with a slacker seat angle. But I felt kind of both bored and sketched out on this bike. I really did not have a good time on the bike.
It's funny because I didn't feel like the bike was really, I didn't feel inspired on it. I didn't necessarily have like the most all-time ride of my life on it, but I felt confident. Like, I couldn't really pin it, but I felt comfortable on it. I never felt out of control, and every time that I rolled up to like a slow speed kind of technical climb, I just was in ultimate control. I could steer the bike perfectly, and like I could place the wheel wherever I wanted it to be, and I made it up like technical sections that I've only been able to make on a couple of bikes in this category. So, all in all, I was pretty impressed by it, actually. And I found that it didn't descend super well.
Especially in the tight stuff.
Yeah.
Those tight switchbacks.
But again, I never felt out of control. And like on the BMC, I felt totally out of control on that bike. I couldn't figure out what to do with it. But on this bike, like, I actually did feel in control. And the bottom bracket is quite high on this bike. Yeah. And so you do feel like you're kind of up high. But maybe that's an advantage to, like, beginner to intermediate riders who might have a little bit more susceptibility to striking their pedals on stuff. And so it might save them from that. I definitely didn't strike my pedals on anything during that one loop.
Well, I did come pretty close to cleaning these elusive technical climbs that have been, they've been eluding me all week, and I almost got one of them on it. So I don't know. I mean, the other two bikes I was on were 27.5s today, and I didn't get the climbs on that particular climb on those bikes either. So, but chalk that up to the big wheels. I would say that in the kind of like divoty sections of those slick rock climbs where there's kind of like natural G outs, I was swearing that the wheelbase was just ridiculous. In my head, I was like, this must be why I'm getting hung up in those. And then later in the switchbacks, the typical old school kind of 29er issues kind of manifested themselves. But overall, I couldn't say I disliked the bike. I had a pretty good time on it. But I would agree with you, Vernon, that it's not the most inspiring ride. Who would you recommend the bike to?
I mean, although it is $3,800, correct?
Yeah.
Although $3,800 is a lot of money to spend, I still would recommend it for like beginner intermediate riders because I do think that, I mean, I had a good time on the bike, even though it wasn't terribly inspiring. It didn't make me want to just like go out and rip and like jump it and flick it all over the place. I still had a fun time on the bike. And I think that it appeals for those people who just want to go out and pedal the bike around, you know?